I had a not your typical childhood. And then my father was a professional jazz musician. I grew up in New York, so that's all I knew. And I grew up with that sound of him playing the piano or playing the bass, or musicians coming over, or him taking, back then we didn't get babysitters, so if he had and my mom had to do something, so I'd ended up going to work with him and I have to sit in the back and listen to the band play. So I thought that, for me, that was perfectly normal. So there was not a turning point, but I would say if there was, it was when I realized that playing the music made me feel a certain way. I had heard the music all my life, but as a child I didn't play it until I started playing the trumpet, and then I started to, it engenders a certain feeling, and it could be, it could be folk music, flamenco, orchestral music. Everybody has a certain kind of music that makes them feel a certain way, and it was just this absolute excitement and energy, and it was the most exciting thing I ever felt. I wanted to, the rhythm of the music made me feel a certain way. And that wasn't until I was maybe 12 or 13 or 14 years old, and I used to sing all the time when I was by myself, get my horn out and play along with records. But it made me feel a certain way. And of course, orchestral music makes me feel a certain way also, and I love that all. I also really had a great deal of respect and love that too, but there was something about jazz music because every time you play it, it's different. I had trouble in my high school orchestra because I didn't want to play the part exactly as it was written. I wanted to change it every time. How many times am I going to play the same thing over and over? It's like your mom telling you to take the garbage out. It's like, oh my God, I've heard this is like a broken record. Not that classical music is that way, but it has to be recreated exactly as it's written on the page. And for me, after 3 times, okay, I've already done that. I would get bored, I get frustrated. In fact,
so that's what I was going to ask you. There's standards and then there's unorthodox. Would jazz be an unorthodox genre?
Yes and no. In jazz, when I've played a song, Stella by Starlight, I think Mary Had a Little Lamb, 5,000 times. And every time I play it, it's different. The phrasing is different. I never play the music the way it's written on the paper. In classical music, you're trained to do that. In jazz, you say this is just a guide. Now we get to paraphrase, and then when we get to improvise, we get to create completely new melodies. Now that's where I could be myself. I could take it anywhere I want. But of course, that takes a certain amount of skill and knowledge. But there's nothing like that. I mean, to know that I can play the same song every night for 5 years in a row. Each time it's different. It's different. And then, of course, we use different musicians, and then we're listening to each other, and we're almost having a conversation. Now, all music has a certain conversational element. Jazz more so, in that our conversation, we might sit and have a cup of coffee tomorrow. We'll talk about different things. We may talk about the same thing we talk about tonight, but have a different take. I might do some reading and say, well, did you check this out? Or what about this? And then somebody else says something else, then you have this 3-4-way conversation. And that's a jazz quartet. It's different every time. It could be a little faster, it could be a little slower. I might be in a funny mood. I might be really angry about something or pensive. In my solos or what I play will reflect that more so than if I'm playing a piece that's actually written on the page. I'm not allowed that kind of latitude. And that's why, so you can tell that I always had a problem with authority. Always. Authority.
Authority, okay.
I don't like being told what to do. I don't want to do it the same way every time.
Right.
And most jazz musicians fall into that category.
Cocky.
Yeah, well, we just don't like being told what to do. Okay. We like to do what we want to do. Within jazz, there's certain parameters and rules you have to follow, but you're allowed a whole lot of leeway.
Okay.
Again, in orchestra, I didn't play the part right. The conductor would stop and say, Mr. Vernick, were you supposed to play an A there and measure whatever it was? And I was like, yeah, why didn't you play that? No, well, I didn't think, I thought a G sharp would sound better.
What defines great jazz to you?
I'm glad you asked that question. You know, the jazz that we listen to today comes from really a 20-year period, from approximately 1945 to 1965. There was a lot of jazz before then. In 1965, that's 50 years ago. There's been a lot of jazz in the past 50 years that we really don't pay much attention to. That being said, some of the best jazz is not necessarily the most popular. You don't have to like something for it to be really good. Remember that. And jazz means different things to different people. Some people love smooth jazz, and to them, when you say jazz, they're expecting a certain sound, and that's perfectly acceptable. I mean, there's so many different approaches to this music. So to ask, you know, what I really find, I guess what I really catch on to is confidence and sincerity. Those are two things. It has nothing to do with swing, and of course expressiveness.